all the big authors say the same thing. I mean, I'm sure J.K. Rowling says the same thing. Is the next book going to be the one that crashes my entire career? Because you're always a bit worried that, your next one's never going to be successful. And then you're very surprised when it is. And I think we're all like that. We're all surprised that it's doing well, but we're really glad that it is and that people like the books.
Welcome to the Author Like a Boss podcast, the podcast for indie authors who want to improve their writing, up-level their marketing, make money with their books, and have fun doing it. Now, onto the show with your host, Ella Barnard.
Hey bosses, if you have an author website or are thinking about getting one, I have a special offer for you. Stacey Sowers of Authors Mojo builds websites, is a technology coach for indie authors, and is my co-author for the book Build Your Author Website. She's also an indie author herself, which makes this so exciting. For listeners of this podcast, Stacey is offering a free author website consultation. If you already have a website and want some feedback for improving it, she'll do a comprehensive evaluation of your site. If you don't yet have a website, but are thinking about taking that next step, she'll walk you through what you need to know to have a beautiful and effective author website. To take advantage of this offer and get a free author website consultation, go to authorlikeaboss.com/mojo. Hello, bosses. Hello, everybody. We are here with Wendy H. Jones. Wendy H. Jones is the award-winning author of the D.I. Shona Mackenzie mystery. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Cass Claymore Investigates, The Fergus and Flora Mysteries, Birdie, the Buffalo Picture Book, and Power Packed Book Marketing. Ooh, Motivation Matters. Revolutionize your writing one creative step at a time. Will be released in May of 2019. Wendy is the president of the Scottish Writers Association, the secretary of the Society of Authors in Scotland, and the webmaster for the Association of Christian Writers. She also presents a literary radio show, Wendy's Book Buzz. Oh my gosh, Wendy, you have so much going on. I'm so glad that you were able to take some time to be here.
It's fabulous to be here.
Awesome. So there is a lot in there. So I'd like you to start with your author journey. Kind of tell us where you started and then how you ended up where you are now.
Well, I mean, I've been all over the place, I have to say. I probably started with fan fiction before fan fiction was really a thing. When I was 5, my mother, who was a secretary and who believed in everybody being able to type, bought me a typewriter for my birthday or Christmas or something, a real one, not even a toy one. And I started off writing naughty fan fiction when I was very young.
How young?
So I just used to write stories, Enid Blyton stories, things like that. Obviously, there weren't Enid Blyton stories because only Enid Blyton can write them, but based on those. And I've always been a writer. I was in both the Royal Navy and the Army, and as a nurse, and that sent me all over the world. And wherever I went in the world, I wrote down what I did, how I felt, those sorts of things. And then I moved into academia. So I was the head of pre-registration nurse education for the Army, Navy and Air Force. And of course, you're expected to write articles and publish books, and if you're in universities. So I published a whole load of really boring stuff that nobody would read unless they had to. And then I got very, very ill with my lungs. And I gave up work because I thought life's too short really to be working 80-hour weeks. You might as well retire and enjoy yourself. So I found out 2 things very quickly. The first was that I found that retirement was really boring. And the second thing I found out was that you can't swan around the world on a pension, which is what I was used to doing. So I had an idea for a book and I thought, I'll write this and see how it goes. And I did. And the rest, they say, is history. I've now got 12 books out. So that was the story of how I came into writing.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have a couple of things that I really like about that and a couple of questions I still have.
Certainly, yes.
I love the life's too short because I came from I was an administrative assistant.
Yeah.
Which is not a glamorous job at all. And I was like, do I really want to spend 40 hours a week of my daytime hours doing this?
Precise.
Not really. So I'm curious about what that first book was.
Well, my first book was Killer's Countdown, which is the first book in the D.I. Shona Mackenzie mysteries. And I wrote it because a friend of mine, who is an editor of a magazine, was on a radio show, and I phoned up and asked a question and asked her what I should do. What her advice would be to a new writer. And she said, well, she was American. So she said in an American accent, not a Scottish accent, just write. And I thought, well, that's great advice. Then she carried on by saying, well, do NaNoWriMo. And thankfully she explained that was National Novel Writers Month. Mm-hmm. So I wrote 50,000 words in November, National Novel Writers Month. And then thought, oh, what the heck do I do with this? I might as well finish the book. So I finished the book, tidied it up a bit and sent it off to some people who all thought it was really good, but the ending was rubbish, which was quite right. If 3 people are saying that, then you know that you might want to do something with it. To be honest, even I thought that. So I rewrote the ending and made it stronger, rewrote the whole book, got it professionally edited, and then got it published. So, well, although I did send it to publishers, but the couple of them turned it down, and I'm a delightfully impatient sort of soul. So I decided to publish it myself, independently, getting professional editors and professional cover designer, and put it out that way.
And what happened?
Well, what happened was it took off like gangbusters, as they say. Everybody was reading it and going, I'm really liking this. And I thought, well, I've got another couple in the bag by this point, so I might as well put them out as well. So I did the same thing, professional editors, professional cover designer, and put them out there, and they've been selling ever since. Then I thought, oh, well, because they were selling so well, somebody said, I got talking about marketing in a lot of different places. I was running writing workshops, and they said, everybody was saying, oh, we want a marketing book. So I brought a marketing book out, and then a publisher approached me and said, would you like to write some young adult books? And I said, oh, yes, I rather think I would. And I got a contract for 3 young adult books, and then I decided to write humorous crime, and then I got approached to write a children's picture book. So it all just took off, really.
Wow. Okay. And you already had this background in writing, although the writing wasn't, it was academic writing. It was
nonfiction. So nonfiction books and fiction books are completely different, as you probably know. To be honest, it's frightfully formal when you're writing nonfiction books, and you have to think about conventions and things. And although you have to think about conventions when you're doing fiction writing, that's the same. The conventions are the same. You need to have your book set out. You need to have a certain plot. You follow the certain conventions. I mean, but then you have a bit more freedom because you can just chuck another dead body on the pile if you're writing a right book.
You can't do that in nonfiction. And then your next step ABC to marketing your book.
Chuck another dead body on the pile. Yes. Kill someone. What is it they say? If you get bored, if you don't know what to do, if you get stuck and you don't know what to do next in your novel, kill someone. Everybody goes, oh, Wendy must get stuck a lot. There's a lot of dead bodies in my books. Not this picture book, I might add. Nobody dies in Bertie the Buffalo.
Nobody dies in Bertie the Buffalo. I'm now kind of on my nonfiction books. I'm kind of wanting to metaphorically kill something off. Just to make it more interesting.
Just slip it in, then you'll know if anybody's reading it. Because why did she mention a dead body in the reviews? But she just mentions a dead body in the middle of this book on playing music.
I'll be like, Wendy H. Jones told me to.
Dead body on that.
I was trying to make it more interesting, you guys. I got stuck. I had writer's block in this nonfiction. Okay, so okay. Oh man, I have so many questions. So you're writing all these different genres and things are going really well.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, it's to be honest, I write things at the same time. So at the moment, I'm writing the 7th D.I. Shona Mackenzie, the 2nd Cass Claymore, the 2nd Bertie the Buffalo. I've got an idea for yet another picture book series, which I'm kind of half doing. I'm writing Motivation Matters, which is my motivation book, my next one. Well, I'm not writing that. That'll be out soon. I'm editing and finishing it off. Mm-hmm. And I'm also doing a brand new series it's a cozy mystery series, but it's trying to keep them all compartmentalized, because people get frightfully confused if you start talking about Shona Mackenzie in the Ferguson Flora mysteries, because Shona Mackenzie doesn't exist in them. It's trying to keep things compartmentalized, so really keeping them quite separate. But although they're all very similar, apart from the picture books, obviously, they've got their own distinct style. So it's like writing different things, really.
Okay. And how do your readers now? Do you have different readers for each kind of set of series?
I do, yes, and I don't, if that makes any sense. Some readers, you've obviously got your real super fans who will read anything you bring out. If you rewrote the back of the cornflakes packet, they'd read it. Yeah, That's the sort of fans you want, and it's amazing, and I'm glad. Obviously, some people will read my Cass Claymore Investigates, because that Cass Claymore is just a load of fun. It's a hapless, absolutely useless. She's a red-headed ex-ballerina and she rides a motorbike, and she inherits a private detective agency and accidentally hires an ex-con dwarf and an octogenarian. So that's just laugh out loud. The mystery's in it, but it's really just the fun and everything going wrong. It's a lot. So people that like cozy mysteries will read that. People who like the really serious police procedurals, who like a lot of dead bodies in their books, we'll read the Killers series, as everybody calls it. It's called the D.I. Shona Mackenzie Mysteries, but because they're called Killers Countdown, Killers Craft, Killers Cross, I won't go into them all because I'll confuse everybody.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah, everybody calls them the Killers series, and basically that's where you get to see it from the viewpoint of the killer and the viewpoint of the police. So anybody that likes something more gritty will read that. And then I've discovered that all the adults that like my adult books absolutely love reading the Ferguson Flora mysteries, because it reminds them of when they were a child again. So, and everybody loves Bertie the Buffalo, regardless of who they are. Everybody loves Bertie.
Bertie the Buffalo. Okay. So Cass Claymore reminds me, have you read Janet Ivanovich, Stephanie Plum?
That's exactly what it is. It's Stephanie Plum in Scotland. People say that.
I'm sure they do. Which is making me want to go read it, because when people ask me, like, what's a good light summer reading? I'm like, Stephanie Plum.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same. I love Stephanie Plum. But to be honest, I don't explode so many cars in my books. She gets through about 5 cars in every book.
Every book has an exploding car.
But Dundee's smaller than that, so we'd run out of cars.
I like that she does that, though, in every book. I like that you're kind of waiting each book to find out how is the car going to explode this time. And it's always some more and more crazy way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I love that. But I love that series, So I've got to do something like that set in Scotland. And this is what happened.
Do you find that your readers are from all over? Not just Scotland?
No, absolutely. All over the world. I've got people reading. I'm really popular in America, Australia, Britain, New Zealand. I've got people reading all over the world. Some of the African countries, Eastern Europe. I've even had people buy my books in Japan. So
wow,
what they think
that
about
is so exciting. How does it feel to have put your books out and be doing what is it like to have this as your life?
It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. I love being an author. I love meeting people. I love meeting readers. I like being able to make people's lives a bit better just by what they're reading. But it's also surprising, I have to say. All the big authors say the same thing. I mean, I'm sure J.K. Rowling says the same thing. Is the next book going to be the one that crashes my entire career? because you're always a bit worried that, your next one's never going to be successful. And then you're very surprised when it is. And I think we're all like that. We're all surprised that it's doing well, but we're really glad that it is and that people like the books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
It also means I can travel because I get to go all over the world and do stuff. So that's awesome. I'm doing a 6-week tour of America in August and September.
Where in America?
Now, listen, I've got to get this all right. I know my geography is all over the place, so we might not be going in this order.
That's fine.
But it's Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, New York State, New England, Boston, Rhode Island, Washington, North Carolina, and Nashville.
Okay, so just Eastern America.
Just East Coast, yes.
Oh.
Well, people did want me to go to Seattle, and I went, no, I know my geography is not very big, but even I know that I'm closer to New York and Scotland than I am between Seattle and New York.
Yes, it's a significantly longer plane ride.
Yes. But, hey, I love America, so watch this space.
Yes.
I really am thinking of a West Coast tour.
A West Coast tour would also be fun because I would recommend Seattle and Portland. Oh, Portland has such good food.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, Portland. Don't they do awesome seafood there?
Yeah, and every kind of food in Portland. Oh. And they have I think the biggest used bookstore in the country. Like, it's massive. It takes up a full city block and it's multiple stories. Wow. And it's
I've got to go there.
Amazing. I love it.
I've got to go there.
Yes, you would also love it. Everybody loves it. It's Powell's.
Food, my 2 favorite things. I'm there.
Yes, it's so good. Okay, so I have 2 directions that I want to go. So I'm going to go in one first, and then I'm going to come back to the other one. Okay. I want to know a little bit about, this is me personally, just me as a person. I'm always wondering about people who write mysteries. How do they keep it a secret, put the twists in, but leave the clues as a writer?
That's a difficult one because you need to. What I do is I will put down what the red herrings are. I will write them down. I have to say I'm a bit of a pantster, so I do kind of have a vague plot, but I tend to just make it up as I go along, and then people just turn up and refuse to leave and stuff. So it does take things that way. But I do have the red herrings that I need to put in and where they need to go. And one of the most frustrating things, if you're reading a crime book, and I'm sure you'll agree, is that the killer just strolls in the last 3 pages and you haven't heard about them for the last 300. And you're like, no, this is not fair. I didn't have a chance to guess who it was.
Yes. I really don't like that.
Yeah. And my first book is slightly different because although there are red herrings and things, you're always getting the killer's story. You're always getting the killer's story in all of my books. So there's a few chapters of the police, then a few chapters, then a chapter of the killer. But in the first one, there are 3 strands to it. So it's modern day, it's the police story, it's a killer story, and it's a killer story as a child. So you get a lot of things in it. So the clues are put in throughout everything, but then they find out about 2/3 of the way through who the killer actually is, and it turns into a how do we catch them and a chase, a cat and mouse chase after that.
Yeah, because I do get frustrated with some books, and I don't read a whole lot of mystery, but I do read a lot of urban fantasy.
Oh yeah,
that has mysterious elements. That's not, anyways. And I don't like it when there's no clues.
Yeah,
where you're like, I had no even inkling, like there wasn't even any clues. Like if I went back and read the book again, there still wouldn't be any clues, even though now I know who it is. I don't like that. So I've always been curious about how do people put that in without having it be obvious that this is a clue. Yeah.
If you want to learn how to do that, the best thing to do is read and analyse every Agatha Christie book ever written.
Okay.
Because she puts them all through, and then at the very end, the detective or whoever it is, Miss Marple or Hercule Poirot or whoever it is, or Tommy and Tuppence will always tell you how they came to the conclusion. And you go, and you went, oh, yes, because you see all the clues.
Yeah.
At the end. Yeah.
Yep. The best way to learn to write is to read good writing.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. That was my one question. Now I want to go on to my other avenue of questions, which is about this Motivation Matters, your book that's coming up. Which probably you guys, by the time this releases, you'll probably be able to get it.
Yeah.
But I'm curious where the inspiration for Motivation Matters come from, and then what kind of challenges do you see for writers about motivation, and then what's the solution? So that's
right. Can you remind me what the first bit of that question?
I know. I have 3 different questions, but first, where did it come from? Where did the inspiration for Motivation Matters come from?
Well, there was a couple of things. First of all, there was a lot of people saying that they had writer's block. Yeah, now whether you believe there is such a thing as writer's block or not is neither here nor there. If someone thinks they've got it, then they need to get out of it and they need to move on. And there was a lot of people saying that, or they were just saying they were burned out. And that's because we're living such a frenetic life now that our brains are buzzing all the time, and your brain just goes, hang on a minute, I've had enough of this. Now, so I knew there was a book needed, but I'm actually NLP trained. So that's neuro-linguistic programming. I'm an NLP practitioner, an NLP master practitioner, and an NLP trainer. So I have a lot of background in helping people not rewire their brains, but rewire their thought processes and things. So I decided to combine them and write a book called Motivation Matters. And it's basically, as I say, it's 366 exercises to motivate you to write each day, for each day of a year. It doesn't matter when you start, because they're not linked to any day. It doesn't say, it's Christmas Day today, so you have to do X. Mm-hmm. It's just 366 exercises, all of which will help your brain think in a different way and get you out of that rut you're in.
I love it. Okay. Okay. What are the challenges? Is it just for people who are having writer's block, or what are some other?
No, to be honest, anybody could use this. It's not just for writer's block. It's anybody who's writing anything at all. In fact, you could use them if you're not writing. There are lots of different things you can do that just make your brain. Basically, I'd say things like, this will give your brain a kick up the neurons, because your brain, the story is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is, if you're staring at a blank screen every day, then you're going to stare at a blank screen every day. You need to do something to get your brain to go, wow, this is different. And it would appear I'm very good at motivating people. When I go and do talks, I do at conferences and things, they always go, oh my goodness, Wendy, I'm so excited to go out and market now. And everybody's like, I came in here thinking, I hate marketing. I've gone out of here now going, I want to market. And I've just used the same techniques.
Okay.
To help people write.
Okay. So I do have questions about that. I have more questions. Okay. But can you give us like 1 or 2 examples of one of the days of motivation?
One of the days of motivation. Well, there's things like go and build sandcastles. And you don't have to build sandcastles. You can do it. You can do it at a beach. You can do it in a play park, as long as there's not children there, because you might get into bother. Or you can do things like, but it's while you're building it, if you're building a sandcastle, then you can use it for plotting. So when you build one, if you're using a bucket and spade and you turn it upside down and you've got your bucket and you've got one bit of your turret or whatever, that's one part of your plot. Take some little flags with you, the little ones that you can stick into your food that says, these are sandwiches, just in case anybody didn't know, and write on them. So you put one flag in with the first bit of your book, or this is an idea for my book, because while you're doing it and your brain's not thinking about your book, it's thinking about your sandcastle, your subconscious will be thinking about your book and giving you ideas. Then all you need to do is take a picture, take all your flags home and start writing. That's just one example. You're probably thinking, oh my goodness, this woman's nuts. But
nope.
Trust me, it works.
Nope. I'm thinking this sounds like one of my other favorite authors, Sark.
Not heard.
SARK. You should look her up.
I will do.
I think you would like her a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. You remind me, that kind of playfulness is one of my favorite things. Cause we all used to have, we didn't have when we were kids, we didn't struggle imagining.
No, absolutely. Not at all. Not at all.
I like the kind of, some of the way to get your imagination going is to do the things you did as a kid.
They don't all involve going to a beach or finding a bucket of sand or anything. There are other exercises you can do at home, like drink a cup of coffee, but don't just drink the cup of coffee. Watch it, watch the steam, taste it. What does it really taste like? If you don't like coffee, drink the coffee. If you really don't like coffee, at least smell it. Things like that. Take yourself somewhere else to write rather than where you always write, because just moving to a different place, there are 366 ideas,
so there's a lot of them. Okay, something for everybody, and you might find one that you like, that's your go-to after you've tried a few, and you don't have to do all 366.
No.
Okay, another question then, related, because you said a lot of people walk out, oh man, gosh, everything you say, Wendy, I'm like, I want you to go further into this, because you, and they're not all in the same category. So I'm kind of jumping around.
Worries.
I'm curious about, how do you have people going into your marketing workshops, coming out? What is it that you're kind of telling people that has them walking out being like, I can't wait to market? That's what all of my listeners are like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I always start by saying, look, guys, who likes marketing? And nobody will put their hand up, and you go, who thinks they can market? And nobody puts their hand up. And then you just say something like, well, actually, do you know what? You're right. And everybody looks at you as if she's gone mad. She's just told us we can't market. And then you go, you're right, you can't market yet. But I've never failed to teach anybody, and I don't plan on starting with you guys. And they all just go, oh. And it takes the onus off of them and onto me. And then they just have an hour of fun. They have an absolute hour of fun. And I say things, and I speak fast, and I tell them different things that I've done. And, things like, everybody will go, oh, I couldn't go into a coffee shop and say, oh, excuse me, could I have a book signing? And I'm like, why not? What's going to happen? I'd be embarrassed. And then I'll say things like, well, do you know what? I was a nurse in a past life, guys, and I can absolutely 100% categorically tell you that nobody has ever died of embarrassment. And everybody laughs. And when you laugh, it stops you worrying about whatever it was. So they just have an hour of laughter, and by the end of it, they're like, this is fun. Marketing is fun. It's not boring. It's not difficult. You can do it.
I like that. Yes. I think, man, I think everybody who's listening wants to go to one of your workshops.
I hope so.
Okay. So what are some of the things in your workshops that you tell people that they could, besides the going up for a book signing in a coffee shop, which I think is a lovely idea. But what are some of the other things that you suggest for people who are sitting there saying, I don't know how to market, I don't really want to market?
Well, the other thing I say is, if you are at book signings, they go to book signings and they just sit there staring, hoping somebody will buy books. I take props along. I take a noose and a dagger. You do have to get permission to have the dagger here. It's not real, it's replica, but you still have to have permission because it's against the law to have a dagger in Scotland. But I have permission from the police. And then people will go, what on earth's that? And then you can start chatting to them. Offer them a sweet. Don't just sit there. Go, would you like a sweet? And then if they look at you, you go, don't worry. They're not poisoned. I know I kill people for a living, but they're not poisoned. And that gets them opening up. Or say things like, do you like writing? I mean, reading. Then the other thing is that you can do is, if you don't want to go out and do that, the social media, make your social media fun without actually saying, buy my book. So I do things like, I go around everywhere, and everywhere I go, I'll take my laptop and I'll say, oh, would you mind if I sat there and had my picture taken while I do some writing? And then I'll put it out as, today's writing comes to you from, and I've had it everywhere. Montgomery's desk, Montgomery, Field Marshal Montgomery from the Second World War. I've sat at his desk and wrote. I've done it from the Queen Mother's writing desk in Glamis Castle. Nobody ever turns you down. So things like that. Bertie the Buffalo, he's an easy one to do, because you can just say things like, oh, Bertie the Buffalo's managed to get himself in on the act at such and such a place. Here he is on a cruise, things like that.
Like that movie Amelie, did you see that movie Amelie?
No.
Okay. In the movie Amelie, there's like a gnome, a garden gnome that travels around the world.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a bit like that. Bertie's adventures. Well, it's a bit like Wendy's adventures. Today's writing is brought to you from the deck of, and people will always go, what are you writing? So then you tell them.
Oh my gosh, that's so smart.
So it's using social media in different ways without actually ramming it down people's throat. Oh, here's my book. Would you like to buy it?
Mm-hmm.
Using Twitter effectively, doing Twitter campaigns, the way you put your pictures together for Twitter, same for Facebook, how to use Instagram. I do workshops on how to use Instagram. I do workshops on how to use Twitter, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I had an idea while you're talking about inviting people over when you're at a book signing, because a lot of people I know write romance. It's a big genre, and you can do something like in the US we have Hershey's Kisses. I don't know if they have them in Britain, but you have Hershey's Kisses, and you can say,
I've heard of them. We don't get them, but I've heard of them. Yeah,
and you can say, hey, do you want a kiss? And then
wow. That's
right?
fantastic. You're good at this. You should be running this workshop.
Like if you write romance and you're sitting there, you can talk to people and say, hey, do you want a kiss? And then they're like, what?
Yeah, that is brilliant. That's true NLP. Seriously, that is NLP. It's using words in a different way that will appeal to the conscious and the subconscious.
I have friends who are more experienced with NLP, and you are segueing into the next question that I had very nicely. Thank you. which is, how has NLP affected your writing career?
Well, NLP is all about how to use language as well, because neuro-linguistic programming. Mm-hmm. So the linguistic part of it is language. So you sometimes can use words in different ways that will have double meanings. Like you said, kiss and kiss. Obviously I'm not using NLP in my writing because it's, I'm not trying to subconsciously control anybody, but you can use words in a certain way that will appeal to different people. And I use it. I'm using it when I do the motivation workshops, because I say to people, think of different words that have different meanings. So you can say things like right. And it's right, R-I-G-H-T, which means now. Mm-hmm. Right, W-R-I-T-E. Mm-hmm. Right, R-I-G-H-T, correctly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm using things like that in my motivation book, and to explain how you can use language, because the words sound the same, but they all have different meanings,
How do you think being a practitioner of NLP has, because your story, I don't know if there's any correlation, but your story of I wrote a book and then it just took off is not a common story.
It's not. Well, a lot of that was to do with marketing as well.
Yes.
And your NLP teaches you to be confident. And I basically, before I wrote the first word of my book, I put a blog post out and I said, you know what? I was already blogging, and I was blogging about other people's books. I was reviewing. And I then said, okay, I'm going to bring a book out. I've started writing a book, a crime book set in Dundee. And pretty much that was it. I was going to do NaNoWriMo, and it was just about that. And everybody in the comments was going, oh my goodness, where can I buy it? And I'm like, hey, I've just said I'm going to write a book. So I thought, well, this is working because people are getting a bit excitable. So I used social media and everything to get the word out there. Then I went to Waterstones in Dundee, which is our equivalent of Barnes and Noble. Mm-hmm. And I said to them, can I have a book launch? And they kind of went, who are you? So I explained that I was a local author, showed them the cover of my book because I didn't have the book at that point. They said, well, crime sells. It's local crime. We'll give it a go as long as you can get people along here. And I got 150 people along, which kind of came as a bit of a surprise to them. And the place was packed out, and they sold books like nothing else on earth. And it just kept going. Really, everybody was buying them. So I'd sold, in the first 2 weeks, I'd completely sold out the books I'd bought and had to buy more. And it was selling like Billy-O on Amazon as well.
How did you get 150 people to come to is it from the blogging?
No, it was just locals. I sent messages to, well, not local. People were coming from the islands of Scotland and things, which is like they've got to get off the island by boat. Then they've got to travel across Scotland. People were coming from Aberdeen. They were coming from Edinburgh. And basically, I just invited anybody that was within spitting distance of Dundee. So, by the way, Edinburgh and Aberdeen are Aberdeen's 50 miles north and Aberdeen's 50 miles south of Dundee.
Okay.
Not Aberdeen, sorry, Edinburgh, 50 miles south of Dundee. And going the other way, it's about another 60 miles, across Scotland.
So people are traveling a full hour.
They were traveling an hour. But I just invited everybody I could think of. Like, I invited over 200 people because there's always natural wastage. Because on the day, you always get there's going to be, it's raining. I'm not well. The budgie's got the flu, whatever. Things happen on the day. So I invited over 200 people, which meant that about 150 came, and I offered them food. And what I said was, I need to know for catering purposes. So I had a bit of a... Then I had a friend who was a professional photographer, and she came and took photos, and then I put them all over Facebook afterwards, and Twitter and Instagram and everywhere. I put them everywhere and got the word out about it, so that there was a buzz, and then people were taking photos and putting them out, and it just kind of took off from there.
I love that. I need to know for catering purposes.
Yeah.
I've done event planning on occasion, just personally event planning, but I love kind of sneaking people into having to really commit, or like reminding people, I'm like, hey, I need to know how much wine I'm going to get, or
yeah.
So if you can let me know if you're really planning on coming, that'd be great. And I do that because I think a lot of authors, because the book is so important to them,
yeah,
like their number one thing, that's the most important thing in their lives beside family.
Yeah.
They assume that it's as important to everybody else that they invite to maybe their book signing. Yeah. They're like, I invited them. They said yes, and then they didn't show up. And I'm like, well,
things happen. Things happen,
And so you have to really remind people, because what's super important to you isn't always the most important thing to everybody else.
Yeah.
But I really like that. I need to know for catering purposes.
You also need to over-invite.
Mm-hmm.
You have to assume that at least 50% of them will drop out, especially in Scotland, where, it could be July and suddenly you'll have a blizzard, So nobody's going to come if there's suddenly a blizzard, whatever the month.
Yes. I live in Idaho, which is a colder part of the U.S., and we have the same thing. Like, it's like nobody's going to come if they can't drive safely.
Yeah, precisely,
Okay. Oh, how did you, I'm curious to know, I'm going to shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you were a nurse, and then you just like, I just want to write something. But now you are the president of the Scottish Association of Writers and the secretary of the Society of Authors in Scotland.
Yeah.
So how did that happen, Wendy?
I have no clue. Everything in my life seems to happen by accident. Seriously, I'm not joking either. I think it's because I'm everywhere. It's all about networking and being nice to people. But I network and I'm nice to people genuinely because I want to be nice to people. I'm not thinking I'll get anything from them. And because everybody knows you, if there's something comes up, your name usually kind of pops into their mind because they've seen you so often, or they've seen your books so often, or they've seen you, or you've been nice to them, you've done something for them. And to be honest, I cannot believe that within 4 years of my first book coming out, because my first book only came out for about 4.5 years ago, I cannot believe that I'm the president of the Scottish Association of Writers and the secretary of the
Society of Authors in Scotland.
Society of Authors, yeah. And the Scottish Association of Writers. I just cannot believe that I've got these positions, because I'm a wee lassie fae Dundee, as they say around here, I'm just me.
So you weren't like angling to become the president. It was like, hey, we know Wendy. We need a president. Wendy?
Yeah, precisely. And of course, when I have this thing that I will say yes to everything within reason. If somebody said to me, "Oh, would you like to fly out to Tibet and do a book signing?" I might think about it because Tibet's rather high up. And you need oxygen to go to Tibet. But I'd probably in the end say yes, but I'd think about it. But most things I go, "Oh yeah, I did think about this Scottish Association of Writers position. I really did," because being president's quite a lot of responsibility, so you need to make sure you've given it proper thought.
Yeah.
But when people say, "Do you want to do X?" I usually say, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea," and then worry about the aesthetics of it later.
So did you oh man, I had a thought and then I lost it.
I mean, being president's great. It's the 50th. It was the 50th anniversary conference in March, and it was amazing. Everybody had such a good time, and you're always worried. You think, "Oh, it's my first year as president. The conference is going to be rubbish," and when it goes well and everybody's coming up going, "Wendy, this is absolutely brilliant, best conference ever," then it really makes you feel like things are worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for taking up that slack, Wendy, while I figured out what it was that I wanted to ask you. The question that it came back to me while you were chatting, and thank you. I'm glad that everybody in Scotland at the association had a wonderful conference. Good job. Yeah. You said you do a lot of networking and you're friendly.
Yeah.
How are you doing that? Like, what does your networking look like? And maybe, because networking has such a stigma for a lot of people. Like you said, people are like, "Well, I'm not just trying to meet people to get something from them. I'm just friendly." But it is still networking. So what does that networking look like for you in a way that isn't just trying to get stuff from people?
Not at all. I mean, genuinely, I've never tried to get anything from anybody. If I want something from someone, I'll ask them. I don't try to schmooze them, or I'll just outright ask them. They'll either say yes or they'll say no. When I talk about networking, I go to every conference in creation, which is really easy, I have to say, when you're in Scotland, because there's hundreds of them. You can't move without falling over a writing conference or a reading conference or something,
It's because everybody all over the world wants to go to the Highlands.
Everybody wants to come to Scotland.
Yes,
this is it.
It's on my bucket list for sure.
Come across. Come to our conference next year in March. You'll love it. Anyway, and most people are friendly, and you just chat to them. You just chat to them because you like them. But I will go up to people and go, "Oh my goodness, I've been wanting to meet you. I am such a fangirl," which is true. I'm not saying it to smoosh them. It's true, and people will go, "Oh, right, who are you?" And you explain and you get chatting, and, it's not, but I don't just go up to big names. I speak to everybody, readers, people who are starting out, I'll help them. As I say, I've got a radio show. I invite people onto my radio show. I've been over to BoucherCon twice and spoke at BoucherCon in New Orleans and Toronto. It's just being seen, really, but being nice to them on social media as well. The amount of people that get worked up on social media, that's not the way to go, because you just come across as being a bit dopey. That's a nice word.
And it's a pretty small industry. I've talked about this with other authors, where when you're just starting out, it seems like a big industry, but it doesn't take that much to develop a reputation.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So you just put yourself out there. Yeah.
But I have to say that the writing community, every last person I've met is delightful. They are lovely. From the big names down to, I've met Kathy Reich. I've chatted to her. I've had my photograph taken with her. She is lovely. Everybody treats everybody else like they're as important as they are. Nobody's up themselves, Everybody is delightful. And that helps.
I agree. It's my favorite industry I've ever worked in, ever.
Yeah. It's great.
People are so kind and generous if they can be, typically.
Yeah.
Like if they can help you. You guys, I just Facebook messaged Wendy, and I was like, "Wendy," or maybe it was an email, but I was like, "Wendy, want to be on my podcast?" And she's like, "Sure."
Yeah. Hey, give me a platform to talk. I'm your woman.
Well, I mean, the worst thing, like you said, the worst thing that happens is they say no, which comes back to that, can you die from embarrassment? Yep.
No.
I've had people say no to me. And then I just ask somebody else.
But if people say no, they say no. It's their loss. You know what I mean? I've never, as I say, the only place I've ever been turned down for anything, and I understand the reason, was in the Bronte's parsonage. And that's where the Bronte sisters lived and wrote. And they said they weren't allowed to let people sit at the table and write because for security reasons, which is fine.
Yeah.
And take photos, and that was fine.
Oh my gosh. You live in such a good place where you can go take pictures of, right? I'm like, I live in Idaho. There are not any famous authors.
There must be a famous author from Idaho.
There must be, but it's a very small population here. It's not like everywhere you turn around, you could go just a couple hours and find.
Yeah.
You're like, people were coming from 50 miles and I have to drive 35 miles to get to the nearest grocery store.
Oh gosh, oh my goodness.
It's quite rural.
6 stores within walking distance of me.
Yes, it's quite rural. So, another reason why people want to visit the UK, to go walk through where Jane Austen, Emily Dickinson, the Bronte sisters. Yeah. It's like so
and in
many.
Scotland, of course, we've got Robert Burns,
Yes.
poetry, and Sir Walter Scott, J.M. Barrie, who did Peter Pan. He was born about 20 miles from me.
Oh my gosh. Plus, we all want to go see, if all of us romance readers want to go see, if there's some cute, handsome guys.
Do you know what? People say to me, why are your books so successful abroad? And I go, well, do you know what? They all think that our biggest export is whiskey, alcohol. Our second biggest export is crime fiction. The whole world thinks we're a bunch of drunken murderers. We cannot fail.
Yeah. The rest of all the romance readers just think that everybody up there is like 6'5", built, like
doesn't wear a
8-pack, wearing a kilt, and
bare chested.
Yes, bounding through. Yes, bare chested in a blizzard, doesn't matter.
With long hair, long flowing hair.
Yes, living in a castle.
They do. That's exactly what it's like here.
They do. Oh man, yes, but just in case, maybe. Plus, castles are pretty fabulous, regardless of whether there's a handsome Highlander in there or not.
Oh, castles are amazing, and you can't move without tripping over a castle around here. Do you know what? I'm the founder of Crime at the Castle, which is a crime festival set in Glamis Castle, which is the childhood home of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and Princess Margaret was born there.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
the Queen went there on her holidays when she was a kid.
Crime at the Castle. What is this?
It's a crime reading festival set in Glamis Castle.
And who gets to who participates? And
anybody can obviously come as a punter, as long as you're crime fiction. There's also a writing strand where writers can hear. And we've only done one so far. We had to cancel this year's for various reasons, but we're revisiting it again next year. And it's last year we had people like Val McDermid, Christopher Brookmeyer, Carol Ramsey, Alex Gray, Lynn Anderson, all the big writers. Michael J. Malone. They're huge Scottish writers. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Wendy, I need 2 more questions. And what is your best advice for people who are authors who are wanting to have the success that you are having? I love it. What is your best advice for them?
My best advice is, first of all, just write. Nobody can tell you can't write. Because you need to do it for yourself. The more you write, the better you'll get at it. And if you've got an idea, just go with the flow and believe in yourself. You need to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will believe in you. So you need to have the confidence to get out there. So write a book, do it the best to your ability, get it out there, meet people, and just believe in your own abilities.
Mic drop. Okay. Yes, if you could do all those things, just do it. Just do all those things, you guys. No big deal.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And the next question is, you have a lot of stuff happening and everybody's going to want to know how to access you. Like, where's the best place for people to find you? Plus, where's the best place? Like, you're going to need, if it's not all at the same website, you're going to need to send me links to the crime in the castle.
All right. So when it goes up on the Glamis Castle website, we'll be on the Glamis Castle website because they just host it. Yeah. Okay. If you go to the Glamis Castle website, there's actually a tab for crime at the castle, but it's got nothing under it at the moment. It's not populated until we run it again next year. But it will be populated. Okay. But it will also be on my website as well. But my website is wendyhjones.com. Can I tell you, for heaven's sake, do not forget that H in the middle if you look me up on Amazon, which is the other place you can find me. Okay. Because the H is important. If you miss it out, you'll get some woman that wrote the sex lives of English women. See, there is no sex in my books, okay? So Wendy H. Jones if you want dead bodies. Go to the other one if you don't. So Wendy H. Jones. I'm Wendy H. Jones everywhere. I'm Wendy H. Jones on Amazon. I'm Wendy H. Jones on Twitter, on Barnes & Noble, wherever you look me up. Nook, Kobo, iBooks, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, everywhere. Facebook. Okay. I'm everywhere.
But all of that is accessible from your website.
Absolutely.
Wendy H. Jones.
Yes, and if anybody wants to email me, then I'm Wendy at wendyhjones.com. There you go.
I think it'd be a good idea for people to email you, especially if they're interested in going into some of these and participating in some of these million things that you have happening.
Absolutely.
I know.
Yeah, I'm everywhere, as they say.
Wendy's book buzz, which we didn't even talk about.
Oh, yeah. I'm doing it tomorrow live between 3 and 4 GMT, which is, Greenwich Mean Time. So I don't know what time that is near you.
But in New York, you'd probably be okay. Yeah, it's early morning.
Yeah, you can get it on MEMS FM live, or you can listen again later on, and I'll be interviewing a psychological thriller writer tomorrow called S.C. Skillman.
Ooh. Awesome. Well, nobody's going to be hearing this tomorrow, unfortunately, you guys, but you can, because this won't have posted. This won't have posted, but you can go find it.
Yes, but please don't listen in August and September, because for obvious reasons, I can't do it live from the studio in August and September, because that's in Scotland and I'm in America.
Yes. Right. Instead, just go find Wendy live in person.
Yeah, in all these places that I mentioned.
Yes.
It will be on my website. The whole itinerary will be on my website.
This is so fun. Okay. I have so many more things I want to ask you, actually, but maybe another time. Yeah. Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you so much for being here.
I have had the most amazing time. Thank you.
No, me too.
It's been an honor.
Me too. Okay. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Hugs and happy authoring here at Author Like a Boss. Hey, boss, you made it to the end of the episode. You're the best. Because of that, I'm going to give you a special invitation to find out more about the Author Boss Academy, where I and a bunch of really awesome authors hang out, have fun, and get stuff done. If you end up joining, tell me the secret word, and you'll get a special bonus. Find out more about the Academy at authorlikeaboss.com/academy. The secret word is nipples. Hugs and happy authoring. I hope to see you soon.
If you love the Author Like a Boss podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time.